Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code FOREVER. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Welcome into the Seahawks Syndicate, where your Seattle Seahawks are now world champions. Now, this is the first year we've done the Syndicate. I'm Dan Viens from Seahawks Forever. That's Bryce Coutts from the Hawks side. That's Mookie Alexander, managing editor of Field Gulls. Brandon Cain still working his way back from the parade, caught in a little traffic. Hopefully he'll catch us soon from the Hawks Nest. I'm not saying that maybe we should take credit or that we manifested the Super Bowl, but I do find it interesting, the coincidence, the first year we do this together, guys, spend time in training camp, and now here we are. The Seahawks are Super Bowl champions. Just quite quickly, Bryce, 72 hours later, have you processed it all yet?
Oh, yeah, I've processed it, and it's weird because when I think back to Super Bowl 48 and that victory, the processing took longer for me to process that we had actually accomplished that, because at that point we had only had the one loss in the Super Bowl to Pittsburgh, which stung so bad. To then go through that process of like, holy crap, we're Super Bowl champions. This time it's more like after we got through that Rams game in week 16, it's like I expected this to be the end. Like we were going to win the Super Bowl. It was watching the parade just kind of finally finished. It was like the cherry on top of the sundae being like, okay, this is legitimate. Like, we have accomplished this. And then when you hear guys like Leonard Williams say, we're coming back, that's where my brain kind of switched to being like, okay, like we've got things to now accomplish going forward.
And Mookie, you were there. This is going to be fun to get different perspectives. And when Brandon joins us, we can get his first-person account of what the parade celebration was like. But Mookie, you were able to be there through all of the media festivities during the week. And then Bryce, we can get some of your coaching acumen and how you saw the game from that standpoint. But Mookie, what was that experience like for you, getting to be down there all week and talk to the players and coaches and get a firsthand account of those guys as they were getting ready to play the biggest game of their lives?
Yeah, I got to be there as media credentialed to do everything but the game itself. And that wasn't the plan to not be at the game, but it's just the NFL can only issue out so many game day credentials. And there were a lot of people who wanted game day credentials. And that's not exactly one of the largest stadiums in the NFL. So it was a space reason. But the plus side meant I could be a fan for a day. I could be a fan for the game itself, as opposed to having to maintain my professionalism as I did for the media availability stuff, because it would have been very, very difficult to not cheer my ass off in the press box. It's a cardinal sin in journalism. I would have had to be restrained as far as the fourth quarter in itself, with the Barnett touchdown, the Nwosu pick six, all that. But being there in the San Francisco Bay Area, you felt that it was a Seahawks takeover. It was San Friato, if you will, with how many Seahawks fans were there. And not always from people from Seattle. I mean, you have people from Idaho, from Alaska. I met somebody from Orlando who now lives in the Bay Area. So you have Seahawks from all over the country, and I'm sure all around the world, who descended upon this great part of Northern California to kind of watch a coronation, I guess you could say. Pretty much everybody was pretty confident that the Seahawks would win. And yeah, the Rams game really was the Super Bowl. It was the Super Bowl. It's easy to look at it in hindsight for the Niners game in 2013, but like the Broncos were the #1 score. They were a record-setting offense. They had a tough schedule. They knocked out Brady. That was still a great team, but this team, the Patriots, a step down from the Rams, and there was no way around it. It was just a matter of if the Seahawks didn't mess around, then they would be able to win. And that's exactly what happened. They might have been able to win a little bit more if the offense was humming better, but they still they led from start to finish. What more could you ask for in a Super Bowl? That's the second time they've done that, where they have led pretty much from the jump and never really let up. So yeah, the players themselves, they all looked. What was the motto? What was the mantra? Loose but focused.
Focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loose but focused. That was exactly the vibe I got being in the big media room on Wednesday and Thursday, talking to the players and just observing how they're interacting with each other. The coaches, same thing. It was one of those things where no, they weren't going to screw around. They were absolutely committed to winning, but they were also shadow boxing, as I'm sure many of you have probably seen in other people's videos. The confidence can also be clearly seen just if you've watched the mic'd up segment for the game itself. Like they were very much all business when it came down to the final 60 minutes. But I'd say that for the Seahawks and this entire week, it kind of typifies the Mike McDonald era, or at least this season, where this is not a rigid, regimented program. There is some fun allowed. I mean, it's not like it's Pete where we know how he was as a coach, and it worked out that way. This is the McDonald way, and it works just as well. And I can see it working for a long time.
Some of the things, this is just a list of things we're going to get to tonight. We might get to all of them. We might get to some of them. We might add some new things in. We just like to kind of take it as the conversation flows, and you guys are a big part of that. And just to let you know, sometimes we try to get through some of our topics first, and then we lean into the questions and comments. I'll try to be a little more consistent this time about throwing some of those up during the show. Of course, super chats get priority. And just a reminder that still having some connectivity issues on my particular channel, Seahawks Forever, in connecting YouTube to the third-party software we use to stream. What that means is I can see all your comments. I get all your super chats that are going to my channel, but I just can't show them on the screen. So if they come through, we'll shout you out verbally. And as much as I can, I'll try and type up a banner and throw it up there so you get recognition for donations, because we always appreciate the support. I've got a couple images throughout the night too that we can throw up and just kind of take us back a couple of days. This is my favorite one right here. It just feels so goddamn good to say, right? Like we've been on this journey together, all of us, going all the way back to training camp. And then all of us as, writers and creators, we're constantly analyzing it. And I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on that. I know for me personally, because I'm always in that frame of mind, right? Where I'm trying to step back and look at everything objectively so I can analyze it as thoughtfully and as objectively as I can, because that's my goal in how I present my content. It does make it a little easier to weather some of the highs or lows, which for me personally is why it kind of was hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that they really were in the Super Bowl in a year that none of us really expected it. And it kind of took me a few days to wrap my head around the fact that it's real. I agree with you though. I think it was Bryce, you said it, that the parade kind of took that home for me. That was fun to watch yesterday.
Oh, it was so much fun to watch that parade. I really hope Abe Lucas doesn't have a concussion and is going to end up on IR in the offseason there. Like, I've never seen someone hit a sign so hard and almost react like, what did I hit? Like, what was the small thing? Like, he hit that. So, and you can hear the people yelling like, Abe, duck, and he just bang hits it. But the thing I thought that was also really, really interesting in comparing, because I went back and watched the 2013 parade and watched this parade again. You can sense a different sense of brotherhood between these guys. Not that there wasn't one in the 2013, but it was very much like offense was kind of doing their own thing and defense was kind of doing their own thing in 2013. And yes, they were on a team and it worked and everything. This team, there is nothing like that. It is one unit. They are one entire unit. And it really came out in the parade when you see, Sam and JSN and all these guys, just commingling with a DeMarcus Lawrence, Ernest Jones, Spoon, all of that. And I'll say this, that man right there on the screen, he is beloved in this city. Absolutely beloved. And the difference I'll say, and why I think there is a higher chance this group has of truly becoming potentially a dynasty, is because I do not believe that man, Sam Darnold, is going to let he's not ego driven. You listen to him even in his speech. Hey, give it up for the defense again. Like, he knows what his role is here. And I think he is the perfect mentality and quarterback for this team. I don't think a Geno Smith would have worked. I don't think even a Russell would have worked. He doesn't want the limelight. He's cool just doing his thing and letting everybody else take the limelight away.
And it sure feels like if we thought that the monkey was off his back after, pick your game, week 18 against the Niners, finally beating them, or week 16 against the Rams, or the NFC Championship game. Now, to me, that felt like the moment, right? Because he played so well. We wouldn't have been playing Sunday very likely if not for his performance in the NFC Championship game. But yet there's still people that doubt him because he didn't light the scoreboard up and put up a huge stat line on Sunday. But here's what he did do. The narrative with Sam Darnold has always been turnovers, and he led the league in individual turnovers this year. That is a fact. But this is too. The Seahawks are the first team to ever go all the way through the playoffs and take home a Lombardi trophy without committing a single turnover. Despite the fact that his game Sunday wasn't the most dynamic statistical game, Mookie, do you feel like the narrative is finally put to bed?
It will probably never be put to bed among certain analysts out there, just judging by the way people talked about his performance. Yes, but like Skip's irrelevant. The thing with Darnold's performance in this game is that I believe he made a lot of the right plays, but his accuracy betrayed him uncharacteristically. So, for example, the all-out blitz where he's throwing an out route to Cooper Kupp, like that's a throw that he can normally make, and he missed it. I actually don't fault him that much for missing JSN on that little scramble play where he evaded the blitzer beautifully because JSN only broke free very late. So, I mean, it would have been a great play. But for the most part, Darnold made a lot of very sound decisions. He chanced it early on, for sure. He certainly made some tight window throws where I'm kind of grimacing a little like, calm down, Sam. But after that, like the second half, I think kind of gets forgotten in terms of the performance because you got to split it. The first half, 9 of 22, 88 yards. I can't spin that as good. The second half, 10 for 16, I believe, for 141 or something like that, or 121 and a touchdown. Clean football. And the play before the dagger was the third down conversion to Kupp on Christian Gonzalez. And that was perfect timing, perfect throw. And the Barner touchdown, of course, was the icing on the cake. So as far as Darnold's turnover thing, I think we're going to have to live with the fact that he will take chances, and that means he will turn the ball over at times. He's not Russ in that sense, but you know what? I don't want another Russ-type quarterback, really. Like, it worked very, very well for a long time, and he got his 2 Super Bowl appearances out of it and a win. But Russ sometimes had a very unreasonable definition of what an open receiver looks like, and sometimes he would destroy the integrity of the play because he won't pull the trigger on what he thinks is not open, but for most of their top NFL quarterbacks is open. So with Darnold, I think that he played within himself. He also did a masterclass in sack avoidance because the fact that he escaped that game with 50-some-odd% blitz rate with only 1 sack taken is a testament to how well Darnold can avoid sacks. His pressure to sack ratio this year was among the best in the league, meaning when he was getting pressured, it wasn't an automatic sack. Like he might not have been scrambling for a lot of yards, but he certainly was.
He had the one big one. He had the one big run for first down.
Juked out, I think it was Tavai for first down. In fact, I want to see him run more next year.
He escaped Milton Williams in the backfield on that one. Yeah, like he got out from underneath that, which is in its own right pretty impressive.
Yeah, Milton Williams had a hell of a game, and Sam Darnold made it moot. And when you consider that Patrick Mahomes was having a hard time escaping that, the Eagles defense that had Milton Williams last year, I mean, that's just some perspective in terms of what Milton is able to do on 2 teams now. But the no turnovers thing was big. Seattle went the last 4 games without turning it over. For a team that was extremely turnover prone, it wasn't just Darnold. Look how many receivers and other players lost fumbles this year. So, and of course, Cooper Kupp throwing the interception that determined that we were never going to see that play again. But that's kind of the common theme for every Super Bowl champion that has had a negative turnover differential in the regular season is they stop turning it over in the playoffs. It's a sample size thing. You just have to be clean for three games or 4 games. And only the 1970 Colts have had a negative turnover differential in the regular season and then had some sloppy performance where they turned it over 7 times in the Super Bowl against the Cowboys and won in one of the worst games ever played. So for the Seahawks to pitch a perfecto, nobody can beat the Seahawks when they're turnover free.
Now, Bryce, I want to ask you this. When you're watching the game on Sunday, such a big game like that, right? Your team vying for a championship. Are you able to shut off the coach part of your brain and just enjoy the game as a fan? Or are you watching it more as a coach would, like through those coaches' eyes?
So the way that I'll say what I've been able to do, the longer that I've been a fan, the more I got into what we do now as a podcast, content creation, is I'll watch the play initially as a fan. So I'll watch it just as any other fan would and get excited. But then the minute that replay happens or they're in that little bit of that lull period, my coach brain will click in. And it'll be like, well, hey, they should have done this. Like, I wonder if they're going to do this coming back off of this. And it's just my brain starts going. And so for me, I was watching Super Bowl at one of the quarterbacks I trained. His family invited us over. So he's a diehard Patriot fan. His whole family are Seahawks fans. He's a diehard Patriot fan. And so me and him are sitting there watching the game. And it was hilarious because my wife came up and tapped me, Anna, and she goes, do you realize you two are doing the exact same thing sitting on two opposite ends of the couch? And so he's sitting there as a quarterback that I work with. His brain's going through it and mine's going through it. And it's just, it was a moment of like kind of cool clarity for me on like, I can be a fan, but I can also do this other thing where I'm still the coach brain and it's still working. So like I used moments in the Super Bowl to actually coach my quarterback where I'm like, hey, see, he missed his pre-snap identification of the free hitter of Eamon Worry, and this caused the protection to be an issue, which is something for me I realized, and I listened to Nate Tice talk about it on his podcast. The NFL has a big issue with defenses, especially Mike McDaniels, that offensive coordinators are continually going to struggle with. And I'll talk about that in a bit, Dan, when you throw it back to me with some more coaching stuff.
Yeah, we'll get around to that for sure. Got a super chat from my side. Can't show the actual comment on there, but just wanted to shout out Owl734 for the $10 donation. Appreciate that. He says, I saw some whining on social media from Pats fans claiming that Sam did not shake Drake May's hand after the game was over. People just looking to hate Darnold just to hate Sam is all class. I've seen some other comments in response to this that there's some video of May looking for Darnold but couldn't find him. To me, speaking of the post-game celebration, like that's the moment where you really realize that like, wow, we just did it. But usually there's a moment in the game when you know, like Super Bowl 48 for me, it wasn't when Percy Harvin ran the opening kickoff back in the second half. A lot of people point to that as their moment, like, oh, that puts it out of reach. We just won the Super Bowl. Crazy things happen in Super Bowls. And so I tend to be a little bit more conservative with that. For me, it was the curse touchdown. What was the moment, Mookie, in this game when you knew we're going to win this damn thing? We're champions.
So the moment I knew the Patriots were going to struggle to score was the second possession when Spoon got the sack. So I was like, okay, it's not going to take a lot of points to win this game. But the moment I knew the Seahawks were definitely going to win the game was the Chenna pick six. Because even though the Seahawks defense has been exceptional at holding on to sizable leads, they did blow that 20-6 lead against Arizona back in week 4, where they were in cruise control. And then, Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of mossed Spoon for a touchdown. Seattle, Myers misses a field goal. They give up another touchdown. They're still able to win it at the end. So there was just something in the back of my mind going, no screw ups, especially with the way you gave up the first touchdown, like a sub 60 second drive, like no screw ups here. And as they're moving down the field, I think they were close to Seattle territory, if not past it. And Spoon timed his blitz perfectly. I thought that the ball had hit the ground when Chenna picked it up, but it turns out it didn't matter whether it was a fumble or a pick. The only thing it did was take away a sack from Devin Witherspoon because it was a pick. But that's what ended the game. That's when I could let my guard down and go, that's it. That's a wrap. That was the dagger, as Misfit says, because it was like the Malcolm Smith touchdown, but later. And instead of the Malcolm Smith pick six happening in the first half, you're going, yeah, it's 22-0, but that's still Peyton Manning on the other side of the field.
Yeah.
You get a pick six with 5 minutes left, 22-point lead. There's no quarterback in the NFL that can overcome that, let alone somebody like Drake May. So that to me was the moment that I knew that the Seahawks had this completely locked up, and it was just a matter of what the final score would be.
Bryce, same moment for you?
Nope. The moment for me where I realized the Super Bowl was over was Barner's touchdown. When that drive, I should say, when they went down the field, converted, and Barner was that open and they scored, it was like, it's 19. It was like, it reminded me very much of when going back and watching those good old like America games. And I remember watching Ray Lewis talk about the 2000 Baltimore defense, where they were like, get 10 points and we're not letting them get more. They will, like, that's our threshold as a defense. 10 points is what we're giving up. And so when I watched Barner score and we went up 19, I was like, this game's over. Drake May is not coming back. He was rattled. You could see it in his feet. You could see it in everything. They didn't have an answer for what Mike was doing with how he was busting their protection plans. Didn't matter what they wanted to do. They were going to be wrong. It was over. And the thing was too, is the way Michael Dixon was punting the ball,
Man.
like that you couldn't get out of it. Even if we didn't score another point that entire game, there was no way I looked at it and went, okay, yeah, we moved the ball a little bit and Dixon's going to pin him in the 5. He's going to pin him under the 10, like, and then make them drive the whole field. And watching that game, like, you take out the two, in my opinion, not to discredit May, like, he threw an amazing deep ball to Matt Collins where it landed, but two kind of lucky play sequences where he gets it just over top of the triple coverage to Matt Collins on the deep end and he catches it. And then Woolen's late getting over top of Collins because he's late on whatever the defensive call was because they went kind of quick and he gets him down the sideline. Okay, that was it. Other than that, like, name a point where you looked at that team and went, yeah, okay, against Seattle, bringing pressure and not playing prevent, did they move the ball consistently? They never did.
Yeah, even that touchdown drive, like, it took two remarkable throws to get him down there. The one to get him close. Bryce, I want your quick coach's eye on this one, because as I was watching it live, I couldn't believe the ball was completed. And then when you see the sky cam angle from behind May, he literally throws it to Stephon Diggs with 5 Seahawks around him. Kind of reminded me of shades of Matt Stafford and some of the throws we've seen him make. It was such a ridiculous throw. And then the perfectly placed ball, as you said, for the touchdown. But the throw to Diggs in quintuple coverage, was that a little bit lucky, or was that just a little flash in all the negative things that happened to the Patriots and their offense in that game of what Drake May can do?
I think it's a bit of both. I think you look at it and you go, he does have the talent to do those things, right? Like, you saw the arm talent, you saw the ability to place the ball. But I will say, in that particular situation, that was bad read and just enough arm talent to get it into that spot. It wasn't like, yeah, he read it, he ripped it, and it was there, and it was like such a good anticipation throw. It was more like, holy shit, I see somebody down there. And I think the best representation of understanding that is if you've watched the NFL mic'd up of the game, which is out on YouTube, and it's like 40 minutes long, there's a sequence where you see Julian Love on the sideline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a sequence with Julian Love where he's talking to Kobe Bryant, and he's like, hey, he's playing like a young quarterback, just like we expected him to. He's dropping back, and once his back foot hits, he's confirming and holding a second to confirm that someone's open. He's not throwing blindly with anticipation like Stafford. And that's where you see the difference between young quarterback that doesn't know what he's looking at versus veteran quarterback that actually gave us a challenge. Is that small second to 2 seconds of, hey, I have to confirm somebody's open. And to your point, Dan, there's 5 Seahawks there. He's not confirming. It's like, I'm hoping he's there because he's supposed to be, and I just put enough on it to get it there.
Yeah. Mookie, what was your favorite thing about the whole game? If you could pick one moment, play, scene, your favorite thing.
Oh man, I'm trying to think. I've only rewatched the highlights about 150 times, but just McDonald's mic'd up when they say the nonchalant, we won the Super Bowl, and then eventually we won the fucking Super Bowl. Yeah. I mean, just finally getting to see him be human for a few seconds.
In case you were wondering if Mike McDonald actually swore or not, people, we've got it on tape now.
Yes, we Pete would say we won the freaking Super Bowl. But with Mike McDonald, we finally got to see him be human for a few seconds. Just to see him, he's shown like more personality over the last 2 weeks. It feels like with the general public than he has really through his first season and the other 2 seasons combined as Seahawks head coach. So this is like the ultimate coming out of his shell, I guess you could say. He's growing more comfortable in this role, and it's certainly easier to grow more comfortable when you end up winning a Super Bowl. Actually, you know what? The favorite part of the parade for me was when Steve Rabel introduced McDonald as somebody who should have won Coach of the Year. And you end up with McDonald just holding this Lombardi trophy going, I'll take this trophy. I guess I'll take this trophy instead. I mean, you couldn't have scripted that any better, that the opposite side of the field had the Coach of the Year and the assistant Coach of the Year. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the Seahawks side had somebody who wasn't even the runner-up to Coach of the Year. You fell behind Liam Cohen, and Clint Kubiak was 4th. And they just put a clinic. Well, Kubiak, I think, kind of played to a stalemate with the Patriots defensive coordinator. But Mike McDonald destroyed McDaniels and Mike Vrabel all in one. He gave him a 2-for-1 deal. And, I don't care if McDonald never wins Coach of the Year at this point if he keeps racking up Lombardi trophies.
Yeah, we'll take that trade. I want to talk about McDaniels for a little bit because, I sang his praises all week last week leading up to it, talked about it on our show last week. He wins assistant coach of the year. The guy's been so good for so long. He's got all those rings. He's gotten 2 head coaching jobs out of it. He's taken a lot of heat since that game for not giving Drake May enough answers, not giving him enough safety nets, having a bad plan. Bryce, is that what you saw? Because there's people out there, and we know who they are and where they're coming from. They're not from the Seahawks side, that are trying to say, this wasn't great defense. Stop it with that. This was bad offense. What was your take on Josh McDaniels' approach and his game plan?
It's the tale of Josh McDaniels as a offensive coordinator in Super Bowls. And you go back and you look at when they've played the Giants and some of these other teams and lost Super Bowls, New England against the Philadelphia Eagles. He doesn't have an answer. At least he hasn't shown one. Maybe he does, but he hasn't shown the ability to have an answer when a team can get penetration and pressure with 4. Didn't matter if you had Tom Brady at quarterback. His offense does not build in good checkdowns. And a prime example of that is Witherspoon's first blitz in this game, where he flushes May out to the right side and he throws it away, but he basically almost gave up a sack. You can see Stephon Diggs point at Witherspoon going, he's coming, after they had already made their checks as an offense. And instead of having it built into the receiver's role, hey, you see blitz, you just go and sit in that window, and May knows he's got it hot. What does Diggs do? He runs a 9 route. He takes off and runs vertical. He's never going to get him the ball. And if you look at even the swing passes that he would check down to, it wasn't like, hey, here's the designed outlet. Like, we want you to get this guy the ball to kind of stop the blitz and the pressure and all those things. It was like, holy shit, how do I just get the ball out of my hand to somebody in an area? And so absolutely, this is about a defense that completely dominated, but it's about an offensive coordinator, in my opinion, that has a distinct gap in his game planning and in his offensive scheme of, what do I do when it's not easy to figure out where the pressure's coming from, 1, and how to attack it is 2. And he doesn't have that. When you can bring 4, simulate 6, bring 4, don't know which 4 is coming, where's your easy beaters? And when you look at Sean McVay, he had figured that out. Okay, these are, because you look at Stafford's number, all 3 games he played us, especially the last 2, he ripped us apart. And yes, we got key stops when we needed to, but especially when you're having a younger quarterback in there, Dan, that is when you need to help him. You as an offensive coach that's been there this long and seen this, you should have, concept beaters in there for this, and he had none. And it killed Drake May.
A couple more super chats come in. Another one for Ol734 reiterates what we talked about earlier. His favorite moment was the Sam Darnold run in the juke. Kind of looked like he was pointing at a blocker, right? Like he was doing that. He was going to weave his way to the end zone. And then Misfit 13 Actual with the $20 super chat. Really appreciate it. He says, this team is special. No divas, no egos. Respect, dedication to one another. They talked about the 12s like we're on the team. My 14-year-old daughter and I are so attached to this team. We definitely cried when we won. 12 is 1 LFG. And that leads perfectly into another question that I wanted to ask you guys. And I'll start with you, Mookie. What did this win for the Seahawks, getting this second Lombardi in this championship, mean for you personally?
Well, it was special because I got to cover the team I love so much in person for the very first time in my hometown because I'm a San Francisco Bay Area native. Hadn't been back in 25 years. And of all the weeks, of all the times for me to go, it's to the Super Bowl that the Seahawks are playing in. And I guess it would have been extra special if I had gone to the game, whether as a fan or journalist or whatever. But even at the watch party, there were still enough Seahawks fans where you could at least still celebrate with them. We were kind of in pre-celebration mode at the Seahawks bar in San Francisco. Danny Coyle is the only Seahawks bar in San Francisco, and that place was jam-packed 2.5 hours before kickoff. I mean, the anticipation was just special. So to be a part of something like that is an experience I'll never forget. And also just, I've had a major family health emergency with my dad right before the season started. I know, Dan, you losing your dad recently, and just looking at some of the players, like Drew Lock lost his dad before the season started. Ernest Jones lost his during the season, I believe. So it tugs at you more emotionally. So I hugged my dad as soon as we won the NFC Championship game because I knew I was going to go to the Super Bowl. And I didn't call him straight after the game because I still had stuff to do. But when I called him from my hotel after the game ended and after I was done recording with Bryce, actually it was before I started recording with Bryce, he said immediately, told you. He said blowout before kickoff.
Nice.
And this was, to me, for me personally, it hit me harder given everything that I've been through personally. And also just being back in my hometown, which I still love even all these years later, more so than the first Super Bowl. Like the first Super Bowl, I'll never forget because it's the first time being in Seattle, in the Seattle area, when they made the Super Bowl was also special. But this one, 50th season, everything, that I went through, and also just looking at the team and the whole makeup and the expectations, this is one of the most special teams that I've ever had the privilege of covering or following or rooting for.
We're going to get more into that in a little bit. Bryce, what about you?
It's an interesting one. Like for me, I guess, like finally watching them win it and the emotion of it coming through in that initial moment for me, like I know you guys have gone through a lot and this team's gone through a lot this year. For me, it was just, it felt good to have it end on a high note. It felt the whole thing, like if we had lost the Super Bowl, especially that New England team, it would have, I think, almost been more disheartening than the one that we had lost in Super Bowl 49, for me at least. Just because of how good this team is and how together this team is. And like, you see the different things. So like for me winning, it was fun to celebrate it with everyone that I was with. However, my wife doesn't care. She's a Raiders fan. So she basically, the whole comment through the entire day was, okay, I'm just here as a footballman. She literally had a shirt that's got a NFL shield on it that says, my team's not in it, I don't care. And that's what she was wearing the whole time.
Stealing Mike McDonald's catchphrase.
I know, right? And so it was kind of funny, but the best part of it was she hates the Patriots more than she hates the Seahawks, which is great for me. But yeah, no, it was just nice for this season to go the way that it did, with the, everyone picking us to fail and then us coming out on top. It's going to make next season, or this coming season, very interesting, because how does this team, in my opinion, handle the high? That's going to be the cool thing.
Yep. We're going to talk about what's next. Certainly. Yeah, for me, obviously losing my dad during the Titans game was, made this special. And I didn't get teary. I didn't break down like I did during the first Super Bowl win, because like you said, Mookie, like there's nothing quite like the first time. Right. And when Curse scored his touchdown, that's when the waterworks started for me in that one. For this one, it wasn't until after the game, watching the celebration and everything, and then thinking about how I wish I could call my dad and share it with him and all of that. But also it was that, it was almost a year ago to the day now that I, took a big leap and walked away from my longtime career to do this full time. And it hasn't always been easy. And there's been a lot of stress and anxiety and sleepless nights, but to cover a Super Bowl winning team the first year doing this full time, not having to, when there's breaking news and big stories and things like that, not having to like wait until the next day to react to it and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. That was pretty special indeed. I also I didn't give my answer for favorite moment in the game, but it's all over my comments. And so I have to bring it up. Like, it's one play. And I don't even know how many snaps. I haven't seen the snap counts. I haven't really digested and gotten deep into the game.
I know where you're going with this.
We walked away for a couple of days and went out of town and stepped away from it. And then I'll be taking all that stuff in for the next over the weekend. But can we talk about Riley Mills for a second? Like that was it was his one play in the game that he made a splash. He wasn't active until 5 games left in the season. They gave him a couple snaps early in every game, and then he basically sat down after that. We all questioned whether or not they should even bring him back this year. Turns out today, we heard this from Curtis Allen, that the Seahawks will not, they get an extra year basically because he missed so much of this year. He'll be a restricted free agent after his rookie contract instead of a unrestricted free agent. But I saw the quickness from him. I saw the get off. I saw the lateral movement. I didn't know he had this kind of power. That's one of the most dominant physical sacks I've ever seen from anyone.
I legitimately thought when I saw him do that JJ Watt had stepped into a Seahawks jersey. That is literally what I thought. I was like sitting there 98, 99, super close, and he's playing inside, and just watching him take Wilson back and walk him back into Drake May and just grab them both. That was the other impressive. Like, you literally grabbed Drake May over top of Wilson and tackled them both. And I was like, that was Riley Mills. Did JJ Watt
read or something?
Yeah, right. And I was like, did JJ Watt secretly possess Riley Mills in that one play? And we were getting a prime JJ Watt Super Bowl moment that he wished he had ever had. Because it was so unexpected, right? Like a bull rush. Because even when we had seen him play, he'd seen the quick rep in that Rams game in week 16 where he almost got the tackle in the backfield and how quick he is. I'm sitting there and I'm going, he might be and I said it to you guys, he might be our biggest acquisition in 2026. And he's already on this team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When you look at this draft class, he might be the best. He might be better than anything we could get at 32 in this upcoming draft. It's almost like they took a pick a year early.
He played 5 snaps. That was it. Riley Mills played 5 snaps on defense, and he got a sack, and he was on the field for the first Byron Murphy sack. So 40% of the snaps that he played on defense ended in a sack of Drake May. And he wasn't lying when I spoke to him on I think it was Wednesday, the Wednesday leading up to the Super Bowl. He said, I asked him, what's your top strength when you're at 100%? He said, just going straight through a guy and running over someone.
That was so good.
And that's exactly how the sack went. So, I mean, that was perfect. And for him, and I mentioned this to Bryce on Sunday, imagine missing out on the national championship game during Notre Dame's playoff run because you tore your ACL in the first round or quarterfinals, whatever it is. And now you spend most of your rookie season having to heal from that injury. But this time around, you're ready to play, and you do play in the big game, and you do get a sack. You do make an impact play, and then you're on the winning end. So he went from not being able to be there, Notre Dame loses the national championship game, to being there in the final moments of the season and winning a Super Bowl as a rookie. So I'm stoked for Riley Mills. I'm very curious to see what happens next offseason because he already said he can't wait to have a full offseason healthy in Mike McDaniels' defense and learning under Ad and Dirty and learning from his teammates, all that good stuff. And so, I mean, this defensive line can get even better next year.
Yeah, the remarkable thing about it is I thought they talked about him. I thought McDonald even mentioned it in training camp that they kind of saw him as a big end. He looks like he's an interior guy to me. He looks like he can play on all fours next to Byron Murphy, and that's pretty exciting. A couple more super chats from my side to get to. Another one from Ol 734 says, in my opinion, this team will be able to handle the high of being successful because of the demeanor and attitude of their QB, who gets neither high or low. Hold that thought because we're going to get into kind of how we think this team's going to handle this win here in a minute. And then another big one from Misfit with the $20 donation. And this is for all of us, you guys. He says, also wanted to tell you boys, thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to put out quality material for us. You guys went through hard times and stayed in the trenches for us. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Look, I enjoy doing this even when they lose, but man, it's a lot more fun when they're winning championships. It's a lot more fun. Let's talk about this now, because all the focus, we're already seeing stuff. In fact, here I've got this. Let me throw this up here. Like, we're seeing, the future power rankings and things like that. We're seeing the Vegas odds. Colin Cowherd has already done his top 10 teams for next year, and he's got the Seahawks at number 1. There's the Super Bowl hangover, which is well documented, and typically it tends to impact the losing team more. We've seen that over time, but sometimes teams that are young that win a Super Bowl, and you look ahead and you think, man, look at that. Look at the core pieces. Look at the salary cap situation. Everything looks good. We might be looking at a potential dynasty here, and then things go wrong. Guys want to get paid. And I'm not talking about injuries. You can't really plan for that. You never know when that's going to happen. But jealousy starts to happen. Guys want more of the spotlight. They don't want to be team players anymore. I don't think I have to guess what your guys' answers are going to be here. But, like, Mookie, do you think this team's wired to win multiple Super Bowls?
At least wired to get to multiple Super Bowls. So that means meaning next year, as soon as next year for sure. It's hard to project dynasties in today's NFL because of the salary cap situation, because of free agency, and yes, because of injuries. I mean, how many teams have seen would-be dynasties derail because of injuries? Not the least of which would include the previous Seahawks Super Bowl winning team and the what could have been, with Cam not tearing his MCL before the Super Bowl, or what's his name, Jeremy Lane fracturing his arm and tearing his ACL on the same play on the interception, or Cliff Haverhill getting concussed within the same game, or Paul Richardson getting injured in the divisional round, which meant we were severely undermanned at receiver. Maybe the Chris Matthews game never happens if Richardson plays, but Richardson was really starting to get going in Seattle's offense. Zach Miller getting hurt early on in the year meant that they ended up having to rely on Luke Wilson and a lot of off the street guys at tight end. So all of those things considered, if I take away injuries and the obvious, injury luck does matter, and Seattle, I think, was a lot more fortunate than many other teams when it comes to the health. Certainly more fortunate than the 49ers, for example. I think that McDonald knows how to run a tight ship and not let everybody get all big-headed about it. You still got so many veterans on this team who are going to be leaders in the locker room and make sure that there is no hangover. I don't think McDonald's going to tolerate let up from players, especially players who figured to be on this team for a long time. So the salary cap situation is favorable for the Seahawks. I mean, 70 some odd million in cap space, and I know that they're going to be extending guys soon. There'll be free agents we'll talk about in due time. But this setup for the Seahawks is much different than the Legion of Boom Super Bowl team, because we don't have a quarterback on a rookie contract. But what is interesting is this is probably the first mid-level quarterback contract to win a Super Bowl in Sam's. 30-something million a year at a time when guys are getting as much as 60 million. I'm kind of hoping that this sparks a new era of middle-class quarterback, whether it's him or whether it's Baker Mayfield. It doesn't have to be guy on rookie contract or highest paid quarterback in the league. If you can get good quarterback play out of a guy like Sam Darnold, who's playing above his contract right now or at or above, and the rest of the team can be built around in a cost-effective way, you're set up for success. And this coaching staff, this management with John Schneider, everything is in place for the Seahawks to at least be contenders perennially.
Bryce, if the Seahawks fail to make it back to the Super Bowl next year, why will that be?
If they fail to make it back, it'll be, in my opinion, due to injuries. That's where I think will be the biggest thing. I don't, some people are worried about the offensive coordinator change that I know we'll talk about here in a few, but I think injuries would be the biggest thing. And injuries, not just in general, but I mean injuries to key individuals for extensive period. You go back and look at the 2005 team that went to the Super Bowl and lost to Pittsburgh. The following year, outside of losing Steve Hutchinson and they added Nate Burleson, they were still a good team. They still had a lot of those same pieces, but you ran into injuries. Matt Hasselbeck missed, I think, 4 games or 3 games, and Sean Alexander missed a bunch of time with a broken wrist and then foot problems. There was a bunch of things that kind of derailed that team, and they still made the playoffs, but they never were able to really get their rhythm. of where they should be after. Because if you remember coming out of that, I remember listening to, John Madden and, all the other kind of figureheads in media at that time saying like this Seattle team should go back to the Super Bowl. Like, there were Steve Rabel, even at the end of that Super Bowl loss, goes, this team is young. Like, they'll be back. And that team was never able to really get back because you ran into injuries, you ran into bad contracts and aging players. This Seahawks team doesn't necessarily have some of those issues, but injuries could be a factor. And we saw some injuries this year with players, Julian Love, Devin Witherspoon. They were able to survive, but you may not have a Reek Woolen to help ease that. You may not have a Kobe Bryant to help ease that this time around. So that's where, for me, next year, if they don't get back, I think it's more to do with injuries than anything else.
Guys, we got, let's see, we got some breaking news here. We've got something pretty exciting to talk about. A little heart music, maybe. We'll go with that. Welcome to the chat. If the tech will work, if I can get him in here. Oh, I know. Hold on. I got this, you guys. No? Here we go. Hold on. God damn.
Oh my goodness. We've created
just trying to find the right god dang template. I don't understand why this isn't working.
Dan created a bullseye on his face, and it's a Seahawks.
Come on, StreamYard. For God's sake, how do I get all four guys in here? I don't have to. Doesn't it happen automatically? I don't know. I guess we'll do it this way. Hey, Locksnest. There he is.
How's it going, boys?
Fresh out of Southern California traffic, trains, planes, and automobiles. You get to bring us a unique perspective. I can't wait to hear about your experience at the parade. But just let's play a little catch up here. What have the last 4 days been like for you? How did it feel to have the team that you cover full time as a content creator win the whole goddamn thing?
It's the dream, man. And it's not a dream that you just have that you hope would be the way it can go, but it's absolutely, this is the apex of where you want to be as a fan. And not only that, it's really, I fall back into becoming a fan. That's really where I found myself the past couple of days. Yeah, I do the content creation and we cover these teams, but it's just been as much as just kind of just, like laying in the pool on your back and just kind of letting it all kind of wash over you a little bit, because it is so hard to be seen and so improbable. I think that's the part that I turned over these last couple of days. And we talked a little bit about it last week, but that this was a team that was not supposed to be anywhere near the vicinity of where they've been able to arrive at. And to get there and to be one of the few Super Bowl teams in recent memory that's done that in that way and has gone from that back end to that front end, to do it a year ahead of time, to do it with a team that's third youngest roster in football. You're both reveling in today and you're going, it's a little bit of the shades of Legion of Boom era where you're like, it feels like we're just getting warmed up. And we know that can come crashing down quickly, but it just is, it's a celebration across the whole landscape of it when you just take that whole thing into account. It's not just the winning of the Super Bowl, but it's all that went into this, all that this can be going forward. And I've been on cloud nine and I haven't gotten off since Sunday, Dan.
You joined us just in time. We took care of all the rehashing for you. So now we can just kind of talk about some fun stuff. You got in just as we were about to shift to what's next. And the first thing is everybody wants to talk about Dynasty and everybody wants to talk about back-to-back. And this team, and you already touched on a couple of the reasons why, that like the list of reasons this team could and maybe even should be back to several Super Bowls over the next upcoming years are plentiful. But just in your view, with everything you've seen, how this team was built and then how they've performed in the last 6 to 8 weeks, especially, how sustainable is what we saw on the field Sunday and the chances for this team to remain a contender and win multiple Super Bowls moving forward?
I kind of came in right at the end where Bryce talked a little bit about injuries. It's really the only thing that can come into play on this. The guys that you're losing are not going to be as great. I mentioned we did not have anywhere near this cap space back in 2013 when we won the Super Bowl. You had some cap space, but it was going to get eaten up by a couple of guys in big contracts, and that was going to be it. You're going to have to make some hard decisions. And this team's not going to have to really make hard decisions in that same vein. They're going to maybe lose a guy or two here, but I think that they can find replacements for what they're going to lose production-wise. And the fact that you are that young team, that you have that cap space that you're sitting on, Mike McDaniels only in year 2 as a head coach. Do we not think he's not going to continue to get better as a head coach with the more time he has to learn this process and develop himself into it? He's got an insane amount of buy-in from these players. I almost get the impression, I don't know if you guys did, but it was just like, these guys didn't want the season to end. I can't remember a Super Bowl champion that was talking about it like in those regards of like, kind of like to go back to practice on Monday. It's a shame it's got to end. And it's like, that tells me that hunger is still there roaring along. And so the big worry I had was, okay, what happens if Leonard Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence and maybe we even throw one extra in there, like Cooper Kupp decides they're going to retire? Versus what happens if we get all three of these guys back? And Leonard Williams indicated at the Super Bowl parade, of course, that he's going to be coming back, which was great news. But these are the little tiny things that could really knock this team off of its spot. Bryce said on the injury front, or the fact that you have retirements. Aside from that, this team's going to be able to cook it up into the future really well, and they should be even a stronger team next year, quite frankly, across the board. And I can't see it. I don't see the pathway, Dan, for how this thing goes off the rails.
Yeah, and even Kupp came out and he's already looking forward to OTAs. He's like, hey, we're behind. Like, we're going to take some time to recover, but we're behind. Like, we got to get rolling here because it gets started pretty soon. And you guys have all mentioned it. Like, I'm wearing my little MOB shirt here, available in the merch store on sale for $16. It's the way they've entrenched this culture and the togetherness that you guys have all touched on just seems next level. It really does. Like, even that collection of talent that we had in 13, 14, 15, you always, maybe some of this is skewed in my memory by what we saw happen afterwards and, 2020 hindsight. But even then it just, you had a sense that there was some volatility there, right? That the personalities were so strong that Carroll had to do a lot of heavy lifting to keep it from going off the rails at times. And we even saw some of the cracks of that start almost immediately after the Super Bowl, with the Seth Wickersham story and some of the things that were happening behind the scenes. It feels like they're just getting started. It really does. And the number one way that you can ensure that you guard against some of those things, like injuries, and Bryce, you mentioned, or if you have a guy or two that starts to get a little outside the lines of where the organization wants him to be mentally, is you just keep adding talent and you just keep creating opportunities for young guys. And we've seen that this coaching staff will give those opportunities to young guys. We saw a bunch of guys carried on the 53 this year that never really contributed on game day that we think have potentially bright futures. Guys like Jared Ivey and maybe Connor O'Toole and Nehemiah Pritchett and some of the young offensive linemen even as we move forward. And that's where, how can we even, we've talked about him a lot, talked about him last week. He won Executive of the Year finally, and that's all great. But to try to put into words in the last 2 or 3 years, especially what he did in shifting his drafting philosophy in 2020, 2021, and then how he handled the change from Carroll to McDonald. This guy is on an epic heater, and I'm kind of more excited to see what he does this offseason with what he has now than what he's done in the past. What about you guys?
Kind of wonder if he gets Rosemond on the trades, don't you guys? Like Howie Rosemond, where nobody wants to trade with Howie anymore because they just keep getting trade rape.
Screwed. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, the Denver Broncos are not going to come calling anymore because of the Russ trade. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'd say.
Don't forget Earl, Mookie.
Yeah, don't forget Earl. That was the origin. That's the origin story of Trader John right there. I think that this Super Bowl win officially closes the book on the Russell Wilson trade. And what I mean by that is, yes, they already had the haul from getting Russ out of Seattle and into Denver and getting Charles Cross and getting Devin Witherspoon and all that. But of course, through the first 2 seasons, they were staying afloat, but they weren't exactly a good team yet. And what was lacking? 2 things. Offensive line play had to be better. And they really didn't have an undeniable franchise quarterback. As much, I'm sorry for any Super Geno supporters listening, but that was true. They clearly never were fully committed to Geno. You've got, to me, a franchise quarterback in Sam Darnold, at least through the next 2 seasons. And maybe he'll be, one of the exceptions as far as getting an extension this offseason. You've got an offensive line now, and it's one that's been drafted and developed. The only guy who hasn't been drafted by Seattle is on the starting lineup is Jalen Sundell, and he was an undrafted free agent rookie for Cleveland, and he failed his physical, and he was able to land in Seattle. So as far as I'm concerned, he's more or less homegrown because he got to go through an offseason here. So you've got your guys, and Gray Zabel ended up being a transformational pick for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Laken Tomlinson, Luke Jokel, those types of patchwork one-year deals that I was pretty tired of doing, those days should earnestly be gone. Josh Jones being a 2-year, or whatever contract he's on a 1-year deal, that to me is a good use of capital to shore up your offensive line, having good depth there. And Josh Jones played really well in Charles Cross's absence. But as we've seen with Philadelphia and many other teams, if you're going to build a great offensive line, the bulk of it has to come through your draft classes. And he got it with Cross and Lucas, but it was that interior that was a thing. And we'll talk about Anthony Bradford some other time. I'm not really interested in debating Bradford's future in 2026, but getting Zabel meant that you have minimum 3 pieces on this offensive line, all under contract for multiple years, where you are comfortable with them and you are comfortable that they are going to perform for the most part at an above average level. That is way better than what we've seen in years past. So Schneider closed the book on the Wilson trade once and for all by shoring up the other pieces that needed to take this team over the top.
Yeah, and if anyone still wants to argue that we didn't win the Russell Wilson trade, I don't know what to tell you. We're going to talk about free agency in a minute. I know everybody wants to get into our thoughts on that, but this is really how he built the foundation of this team. And a lot of it was with those extra picks that he got in the Russell Wilson trade. You just see pick after pick after pick nailed, especially the first round picks. You know, you got to hit on your first round picks. And then if you can find a couple of gems later on too, that's when you really start to put something together. But I want to go back to that 23 draft because this was not a slam dunk in the eyes of a lot of people, right? They go Devin Witherspoon at 5. Some people were livid that we took a slot corner, right? A nickel guy at 5 and took him ahead of Jalen Carter. Even JSN at 20. Guy didn't play his last year in college. Is he injury prone? Is he only a slot guy? Is 20 a little too high for them? I mean, you'd be hard pressed to go back in time and find a franchise that nailed 2 first-round picks any better than this one. Maybe the Seahawks when they took Hutchinson and Alexander in the same draft. Maybe. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's some others. But Brandon, we'll let you get some extra time here for coming in late. Just what more can you say about his? We've talked about the shift and what happened, and John Schneider's been open about it and how differently he drafts and how he shrunk his board. But like, I don't know, put it into words for me because he's almost not missed in the last 4 years.
Yeah, well, I think it's one thing when you can hit on picks that everybody goes no brainer, right? If you had taken Jalen Carter in the moment, everyone would go like no brainer, you're taking him there, right? Mm-hmm. And that you get picks right that everybody's kind of like, I mean, yeah, okay, maybe. And that's a little bit at the front of this is that he's made picks that are great picks that aren't just easy to see. The other part of this, just to come a little bit back around to that dynasty part, you know, what is it that allowed the Cowboys to get to their dynasty? What was the big centerpiece of allowing them? It wasn't Troy Aikman. It wasn't Jimmy Johnson. It was the Herschel Walker trade that started the whole thing off.
Yep.
So when you talk about dynasties and why, like, there's all these teams right now talking about how they can replicate what Seattle's done. And how, like, well, Caleb Downs, can he be our Nicky Minwari? And you see it out there on Twitter already, and it's breaking down. Yeah, you can't get the package of picks we got. You can't replicate that. Charles Cross is a franchise left tackle that you got with a freebie pick. You know, Kenneth Walker probably will remain here at 25 years old, heading into his prime as a difference maker at the running back position. And you layer that over the top of making these great picks like you just mentioned with Witherspoon or JSN or what you've done through the other parts of the round. And you also mentioned a key point to this that makes John so awesome, which is it's not just he's brilliantly minded. It's that he knows his stuff doesn't stink and that there's places that he's got to correct it himself when they go wrong. And he recognized in the late 2000 teens, I got to change my process here. This is a broken one. Mookie talked a lot about both the free agents they were spending on and how they were drafting offensive linemen or the lack of drafting offensive linemen, especially early. And they really flipped the script as far as their strategy at that point and said, okay, we're going to do this a little bit differently now. We got to correct where we've gone wrong. And that's where I think a lot of general managers have an ego involved that sometimes won't allow them to do that and be as willing to be as fluid in how they bounce around. But he is absolutely on a heater. He's absolutely right now in the pocket. He's got a lot of money to sit on. He's going to have to get the next kind of obstacle to clear is really how do you fit all these contracts in there? But even that was not one of the problems during the Legion of Boom era. You got Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill and Marshawn Lynch and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman. I can go through the litany of the list, right? Where he was basically able to almost keep the whole band together. You may lose a guy or two or here over the couple of years, but he's got so much money now. It's so well set up in advance. He's done phenomenal. The fact that he did this with $80 million of dead money and how many Niner fans are squawking about the fact that, well, we had to sit on $100 million of dead money this year. Yeah, the injuries. Yeah. But it was also the $100 million of dead money. I mean, who can compete with that kind of money on the books? Well, we had 80 and you cleared it. So it's the wildest part of the Super Bowl. You did this a year early. You cleared bad money off the books in the year that you won the Super Bowl a year early with one of the youngest rosters in the entire NFL. And now your books are absolutely spotless clean going into the future. I mean, it's definitely going to be one that's going to be hard for me not to be gassing people up as we go forward.
And this guy, he was a second round pick, but my goodness, MVP of the Super Bowl. And Bryce, I see the reaction there from you. Let's talk about this guy for a minute, because we talked last week about how we've seen a different Ken Walker the last 4 or 5 weeks. And really the shift, I think, can be traced back to the change in running back coaches. Kennedy Palomalu was let go, it seems like now. I think we've gotten enough confirmation to be able to say that with confidence. Justin Outen took a bigger role in coaching the running backs. We saw him get more decisive in his choices about when to stick his foot in the ground and pick a lane. But I thought I was seeing Le'Veon Bell out there on Sunday. He took it to a whole different direction and a new level in a way that we've never seen him do before, in how patient he was as a runner.
100%. And there's one thing, if you actually go back and watch this season and watch just Cain, I did it because something I noted, and I don't remember if I mentioned it in Mobile when we were all together. His stance changed in the backfield at about week 14, week 13. So earlier on with Coach Palomalu there, he was very much hands on knees, typical running back stance, right? Like very much leaning forward. Ken Walker is not a very big individual as it is, right? He is a smaller running back. All of a sudden, if you watch over the back half of the season here where he had the most success and Outen took over, he started standing up like Ashton Genty did at Boise State. And he did it all Super Bowl. He did it all playoffs and everything. And what I think it allowed Kenneth Walker to do was actually be able to see the flow of the defense better rather than running in and just being like, yeah, I got to go. And then trying to stand up. You can't see anything. He was able to be much more patient with what he was doing. To your point, Dan, the Le'Veon Bell-esqueness in the Super Bowl. But you saw a guy that was like, okay, if I'm going to take 3 yards, I'm going to take 2 yards. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to set them up where they think that they've got me bottlenecked, and I'm going to let my blocks develop. And then bang, because he's got such quick explosion, he can scoot his way through a hole. And there was the one where I think he took it and Sundell had a block and Bradford had a block. And he basically just waited, and then a crease opened and he shot through it for about 15 yards.
That was cool.
And I said it 2 weeks leading into that Super Bowl. I said he's going to be the Super Bowl MVP. I figure he was going to get over 135 all total yards, all-purpose yards. I said he'd have a touchdown, which unfortunately on a very weak holding call got called back, which annoyed me a little bit. But that guy is, you saw what Brandon and me had been kind of preaching all year when everyone was like, oh, Ken, take away his touches, give it all to Charbonnet. It's like, that's what Charbonnet doesn't have. He doesn't have that quick twitch explosion like Ken Walker. And you got to see it on full display in the playoffs. And I'll give credit where credit's due. Their game plan for handling his health throughout the year allowed him to be also that effective towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll see that kind of load management again next year. I know, Bryce, you and I both have Greg Bell on our show, and he's talked about how that was still kind of some lingering effects from the high ankle sprain being a little more serious at the end of last year, and them just wanting to make sure that was fully behind him. Let's talk about a couple of big sort of issues that everybody is focused on right now. One is, how do you keep your vets? How do you keep your free agents, obviously restricted, exclusive rights, unrestricted, and then guys that need to be extended. Brandon, you touched on it a second ago, and let me just show this because this is interesting. We all know they have like $74 million of cap space right now. I think effective cap space is 68 or 69. Well, Over the Cap came out and did some of their stuff today, breaking down how much money each team in the league has available to them with quote unquote simple restructures, which is when you just take salary from a player and you convert it to bonus and you can clear some cap space. Now it adds dead money to the end of their deal. Sometimes you add void years to help spread that out. But this is a strategy and a technique the Seahawks have used for quite some time. John Schneider believes in it. Joey Lane believes in it, where they don't guarantee a lot of money into the second year. They stick to shorter term contracts. They structure the salary and bonus structure in such a way so they can do this. They budget for this. This is planned, these levers that they pull. And this is what this looks like now is the Seahawks are pretty much right in the middle of the pack, but they can clear another $57 million with simple restructures, which would put them at over 120, actually. So, Mookie, I'll ask you this. When fans start to freak out, and they're doing it already, we can't keep them all. We can't afford to keep them all. And certainly opposing fans like to throw that in our face. You guys are toast. You can't keep them all. With $120 million in cap space, they can keep them all, can't they?
They can keep them all. They don't have to keep them all, nor should they keep them all.
Right.
There's certain players on who are impending free agents. Like Boye Mafe had a really good game to me in the Super Bowl. The totality of his performance this season leads me to believe that Seattle's going to let him walk in free agency. All right, that's fine. Not the end of the world. One fewer free agent that you have to sign or think about re-signing. But for the big names, I think we're focused on Reek and Rashid Shaheed. I think those are probably your top two, and then Kenneth Walker. So that's your top three. Those are the three big names. Woolen, I think, might walk. And
I think he's going to.
I think he's going to. So, and it's just because...
Walk or be allowed to walk.
Yeah, and I have my concerns about that in terms of how Seattle can effectively replace Reek, because the moment that he does walk, you got a pretty undersized cornerback room, and certainly not as athletically fearsome as it is right now. But that's for another day. I think they have every reason to re-sign Rashid Shaheed. I know that he didn't put up the gaudy receiving numbers, but they were close. They were getting close in terms of just that timing, that chemistry. Just if Christian Gonzalez didn't play out of his mind in that game, then there's a chance that Shaheed could have had some bigger numbers, like that deep shot that Gonzalez was able to dive and knock away. Ken Walker, I'm not worried about re-signing him. Like it's not like he's suddenly going to command Saquon Barkley money. He doesn't really have that track record of it. You pay him top 5-ish, 7-ish running back money. What are you looking at? 12, 15 million a year? I think
James Cook is 12, Kyron Williams 11.5. Maybe you give him a bump over Cook. You give him 13, so it looks like that on its face anyway to reward him. But yeah, it's people are coming out and saying, oh, it's 15, 16 to go 345. You don't need to break the bank that much. You don't need to blow up the market.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, Seattle's unrestricted free agent list might be very noteworthy. It is not extensive. I'm listing them here from our own Field Gulls article from John Gilbert. Kobe Bryant, whom I think is also going to walk, and like Ty Okada's emergence, I think kind of tips the scale as far as retaining him. Josh Jobe, and again, you don't want to let go of both. So I think at least one is going to resign. So Jobe, Woolen, Bryant, Shaheed, Mafe, Walker, Josh Jones, Derek Young, Chaz Surratt. I don't think anybody's going to lose sleep if Chaz Surratt doesn't resign. Derek Young, even if he does resign, cheap deal. So they got all this cap space, the potential to restructure for more. And you don't have that many people to keep under contract in unrestricted free agency. Even the restricted free agents, you've got Drake Thomas, Brady Russell, Chris Stoll, who's the long snapper, Cody White, Brandon Peely, Cody White. Cody White's listed there twice. Good going, John, and good going me for not editing that out. Jake Bobo and AJ Finley. So the reason why we can be so bullish on Seattle is I did not list like 20-something unrestricted free agents there. I listed a handful with all the cap space that they have, such that they should be able to re-sign some of their key free agents and still make their contract extensions for key players, and so obviously sign their rookies whenever they have their draft class. And maybe this is, in a way, a good reason why only having 4 draft picks is coming up for Seattle, because that's less money you got to allocate to rookies right now.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they trade down, add picks, like I don't think they're going to have any more than 6 draft picks.
And you're already saving money by drafting with the last pick in every round. I mean, that stuff adds up, for teams that are tight. Brandon, who's the biggest priority? If there was one guy that the team could get done tomorrow, who would it be?
Kenneth Walker by far. And that list that you brought up, Dan, if you have a chance to bring that back up, what's interesting of note about that list is only one team has more cap space than you have those teams above you. So essentially those teams above you on their ability to restructure deals have currently less cap space than you have. Only one team has more cap space and an ability to restructure this place. So as far as, your ability to flexibility, move around on this, and I got a name for you, by the way, Mookie. I'm gonna make your heart content tonight because I know you're worried about that bigger cornerback. Okay, so I got your guy. It's Marlon Humphrey. He was in the Super Bowl parade.
Okay, Brandon is on the same wavelength as me.
He's been stalking Mike McDonald for the last day.
Yes.
Done. One replacement, big corner.
So that came out. I saw it yesterday during the parade festivities, or somebody like screen captured it and showed. That's weird, right? Unless there's something more to it. Like, he didn't just come out
here.
They're
going to release him.
Sunshine.
They're
releasing him.
They're releasing him.
Yeah.
They've already kind of set out they're releasing him. And he was here actually before the parade. He had got to Seattle the Super Bowl Sunday and was walking around, and people were like, why is Marlon Humphrey in Seattle?
He's
as soon as I saw that, and I'm like, Marlon Humphrey's going to get released. Marlon Humphrey's best years came with Mike McDonald.
Absolutely.
Woolen's going to walk probably, because even Woolen's agent put out, I don't know if you guys saw the Instagram post of Woolen and him walking, being like, okay, got the ring. Now we're on to better things or next chapter or something. And it's like, okay, I got a feeling Woolen's walking. So to Brandon's point, I thought the same thing. I was like, Marlon Humphrey comes in, Reek Woolen goes out, revolving door. We have our big corner.
Yep.
And I don't think he's going to cost that much to do. Exactly. I don't think he will.
It's this because the Seahawks have now entered that territory, right? They're the team that now guys want to chase a ring. This is where you come. The culture's great. The foundation's young. They need some. They've seen the value of what veterans can add to this team. If Ravens release Marlon Humphrey, I think he's a Seahawk.
Yeah, I'd rather they're just not. I'd rather they do that and also not re-sign Tyler Linderbaum, and then we got the best of both worlds. But that's for another day. As far as
Jalen Sundell is our center.
Yeah, he's our North Dakota State Tyler Linderbaum. But you make a great point about the ring chasing thing, because the success that Cooper Kupp and DeMarcus Lawrence had, as far as quote ring chasing here, and DeMarcus Lawrence, just that interview with Hawk Blogger, is going to be immortalized in the content creation world for as long as this planet exists, because everybody laughed off the idea of him winning a Super Bowl in Seattle. They might have been saying, yeah, you're right about not winning a ring in Dallas, but winning a Super Bowl in Seattle, this year's team, come on. And then it actually happened. So ring chasing is very much a thing across all sports. And the Seahawks are, to me, going to be an attractive free agent destination because of Mike McDonald, because of the culture of this team, the way that there's this togetherness. I mean, this is not like the NBA or Major League Baseball, where you're ring chasing, but you're going to all these big time markets, Los Angeles, New York. That doesn't exist in the NFL. You go where success goes. So if the Jacksonville Jaguars were ever consistently like a 14, 15 win team, you better believe there would be some superstars or free agents to be trying to sign up for Jacksonville, and also no state income tax. Which, by the way, for anybody who wants to go to Seattle Seahawks, have I got news for you?
Well,
you're not going to get screwed with the jock tax.
No state income tax for now. If they want to sign some big free agents, they better do it soon, because they're trying to pass that millionaires tax or whatever.
Oh, so, they are. Oh, so the more you know.
Oh, Lord.
Get your shopping down here in Oregon, where there's at least no sales.
Cody Allen needs to be paying some money to try to lobby against that. Brandon, we'll kind of finish with some of your observations from the parade to kind of tie a bow on it at that point. But let's talk about this idea. We've talked about the sustainability, their ability to get back and win perhaps more championships. But I want to talk a little bit more about the quality of what we just saw, because even with highest point differential in 25 years, right, with playoffs and regular season included, first team since they started seeding the playoffs in 1975 to win a Super Bowl and beat a 12-win team in the playoffs along the way, and they did two teams. I mean, you could just go on and on and on about all the numbers of how dominant this team has been. Here's one. Top 25 teams of the 2000s by EPA per play. There's the Seahawks 2025 unit at second behind that great 2007 Patriots team. Oh, by the way, there's the 2013 Seahawks, and even the 2012 Seahawks are on this list. I mean, are there still people that aren't giving this team the credit they deserve for what we just saw.
100%. And I'll even go give you further than that. It's less than just even not getting the credit. I don't think people are taking into account how historically great this football team was by how they performed. And that it's a lot more of like, oh, that was a weak Super Bowl, and oh yeah, the Patriots, and oh. But when you look through what they had to go through track record wise, 11th hardest schedule by DVOA. Let's go take DVOA. 11th hardest schedule all time by DVOA's metric to get yourself to the Super Bowl. You were playing in a division that's probably the toughest division that we've seen in football in at least the last 20 years. You guys got any other division you can think of that performed this well in any given season over the last 20, 30 years? I can't think of one that even comes close. You had to get through
earlier today. Has a division ever had 3 teams make the playoffs and all win a game? When has that happened?
Yeah. And that speaks to how difficult the path was just to start out to get yourself to the playoffs. Say nothing again. Then you're in the playoffs in 2 trilogies. And it just, you look at that, you look at what they did schedule-wise on it, the EPAs, or you look at the you look at the DVOA, which they've got as far and away one of the best EVOA teams ever on that. I mean, what you want to look at as far as to kind of look, and what is the metric we use, I guess, to determine what is the great teams? Is it just a gut instinct thing of like, I just generally feel that they were the best ever? Or is it like, let's use some of these numbers and pull them all together and see where it all kind of lands in at? And I think that the fact that we surprised people, Dan, has been the thing that's kind of diminished this, or the fact that people are, it's Pacific Northwest, it's Seattle. I think some of that inherent bias kind of comes into play on this, because if this was a team out on the East Coast that had taken this pathway, and like the New York Giants, can you guys imagine if the New York Giants did what we just did as far as the hype and the media and the press as far as that coming out the East Coast? It'd be through the roof, through the roof. So I think it's not only that they're not getting enough credit, I think it's being devalued in a way that's really not right.
I think a lot of it is the refusal to believe Sam Darnold is a good quarterback, is at least a bare minimum very good quarterback. Because even there still takes right now about, I'd still take 9 NFC quarterbacks over Sam Darnold. I don't really care about that at this point. You can believe what you want to believe. But if the Rams, I said this earlier today, and unfortunately some Seahawks fans had very poor reading comprehension and thought I was a Rams fan for some reason. If the Rams had done what the Seahawks just did, beat the Patriots and do the same path. Let's say the Rams actually won the division outright. They win that Thursday night game, week 16, and then they eliminate the 49ers in the divisional round, blow them out, eliminate the Seahawks in Inglewood in the NFC Championship game, and then lay waste to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Would people be talking about the Rams as an all-time great team? At a minimum, they would be an all-time great offense because of Stafford winning the MVP and Nakua having this amazing season and all that. But I think they absolutely would be fawning over the Rams as an all-time great team, even though statistically they weren't, because their special teams was lousy and their defense started to sack. The Seahawks defense was consistently great all season, and the only teams that could really trip them up were the Rams and the Buccaneers when Seattle was missing so many starters. The special teams, phenomenal. The offense was the quote-unquote weak point, and they were still top 10 or top 11 in points per drive, facing a difficult schedule. So yes, people did not expect the Seahawks to be this good, even this fan base. It's different than when the 2013 Seahawks won the Super Bowl, because they were expected to be contenders because of how 2012 went. But because this came out of nowhere, and because it was Sam Darnold leading the way instead of some like fresh face, first round quarterback who's on his rookie deal, people just don't want to believe. And I know that New England also matters here. New England was a weaker AFC champion. Let's face it. I know they're 14-3. They're a very good team. They weren't great. If the Seahawks had beaten Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, for example, or the Baltimore Ravens were healthy and better coached and Lamar was playing well and all that, like if they had beaten one of the big names at quarterback, like they did with Peyton Manning in 2013, they would have garnered more respect. But what bothers me about that is they beat Matthew Stafford. They beat the MVP and the MVP runner-up in back-to-back weeks. And yet it's still, but. So I'm not going to argue that the Seahawks are like the best team I've ever seen or anything like that, but they absolutely deserve their due as one of the best teams, at least of this era, because they were balanced. They were the most balanced team. They were dominant. When they faced bad teams, they blew them out for the most part. When they faced good teams to great teams, they either beat them they either lost to them narrowly or beat them, or even beat them convincingly. So I'm losing my voice a little bit because I picked up an illness on my way back from San Francisco, but I'm just sick of all the analysts and all the pundits and just kind of downplaying the success of the Seahawks just because they can't get over their own priors not being confirmed.
All right, let's talk about the one thing about this team that is probably the most currently newsworthy. And that is the fact that they are having to find for the third time in 3 years now under Mike McDaniels, a new play caller, a new offensive coordinator. It has been widely reported. Greg Bell and Brady Henderson were kind of first on the scene to report that it looks like the Seahawks were prioritizing promoting from within. Then Jeremy Fowler reported yesterday that today and tomorrow they are interviewing Justin Outen, Andrew Janocko, Jake Peets, and Mac Brown, their tight ends coach. That was kind of a curveball that came out of left field that none of us really expected. I've got something to show you here. This is I thought this was really interesting. These are some comments that Mike McDaniels made on his radio show with Seattle Sports on Tuesday. It's usually Monday, but he was a little busy. I had to go do Kimmel on Monday. I've got two comments back to back because the other concern that fans have is how many of his coaches is he going to take with him, right? We've seen this for a couple of weeks now that, we're going to get Brady. He's going to take the whole staff. They love him. They've gone everywhere with him. And certainly that's what opponent fans are coming at us with because that's wishful thinking. But this is Mike McDaniels talking about their philosophy on how they plan to fill this job and others when it happens again down the road.
Part of what we want to do is have continuity. And a part of our vision here is that we want to have the Seattle Seahawks system that's going to evolve over time, and it's going to be our system, and ultimately we want to be a place where we can create an environment where people, if we do a great job, we do what we're supposed to do, we can create opportunities for our own people and keep growing our people. But that doesn't mean we're not going to augment our staff from people that are out there. I mean, we're always going to do that, but right now, that's where my mind is.
Doesn't sound like there's going to be a mystery candidate or anyone coming in from the outside other than they still have to satisfy the Rooney Rule. So there will be somebody that they'll have to reach out and interview in addition to those four guys. But let me just kind of throw it out to the field, and you guys can kind of jump in when you want to. Who not necessarily do you think it will be, but who should it be?
Oh. Brandon, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
I can't say I've got a real dog in the fight because of the fact that it's not going to be an outside guy in here. I still do come back to the guy that I would have wanted was Arthur Smith. I would have wanted, not Arthur Smith, the guy that has called plays. I get that they want to continue their own thing in here, but there's a whole nother susceptibility you open yourself up to having someone take on this job who's never really called plays before. But this does seem to be the direction they're going in. So it's kind of like, to me, you can flip the four-sided coin on that one, and whichever you lined up, none of us know if any one of those is going to be better than the other. I mean, we don't have a track record. So it's like, well, this guy's got heat in the background. Well, I heard this guy in the background's like really well reputed. Okay. It's like they're untested. Maybe it will work. It's failed for us a bunch trying this road in recent years. So I've colored me skeptical that it's going to be something that's necessarily a successful path, but I'll trust in McDaniels. And if he loves a guy and he's hot to trot on someone, then so be it. But I wouldn't be surprised in the least if we hire from in-house and come back around next year looking for more of a solid candidate than at that time at the beginning of the offseason, going back down this path, in my opinion.
And they could. If there's one thing we've seen from McDaniels, he never rests. He's never satisfied. He's chasing edges. He's always looking for something better. And if, to your point, if they elevate, let's say it's Andrew Janocko, and the offense kind of is inconsistent, never really gets to where McDaniels wants. He's so clear in his vision, he'll make a change again next year. He won't hesitate to.
One quick thing too is there was another soundbite in that 710 interview that he said about losing coaches, where they asked him about losing coaches, and that coming up, I won't press it
right now. Let's go to the next.
We're under contract.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, what if they're getting promotions? If someone's doing, how does that factor in?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing because there, on one hand, you want your people to have great opportunities and to grow their career, and that's a big part of what we want to be about. And we're also about creating the best possible team that we can have, and putting ourselves in position to be consistent and be great. And it's about us as an organization as well. And I'll tell you this about Clint. He's been phenomenal with the whole, he is a team player through and through. He's incredibly he's just been great to work with, and so we'll work together on it. And I think we got a situation here where everybody can win.
It sure does not sound like we're going to see a mass exodus in the staff. And this is consistent with some of the things that we've seen reported over the last couple of weeks, that John Benton isn't a given to follow Kubiak. He's had a long career. He's followed a lot of coaches. He's been on staffs that have gotten fired before. And I mentioned Benton because I think that's the one guy that most people want to see stay, because, you know, we finally saw that offensive line become competent and at times pretty damn good. He's, you know, do you want to go do another rebuild with another brand new offensive line? It's the worst offensive line in the league. You're starting at the bottom again. Or do you maybe want to hang around with your average age 24-year-old offensive line that just won a Super Bowl and try to make them, build them, make them even great, take them to the next level and win multiple rings? I don't think John Benton's going anywhere.
No. I look at it this way. If I was to bet on two coaches leaving Seattle, it's Janocko and it's Dennison. I don't think Peets goes anywhere. I don't think Outen goes anywhere. I don't think Benton goes anywhere. I think, and the other thing is interesting, who they interviewed today in Las Vegas is the receiver coach from Seattle. I think there's, you know, kind of just even by listening to Mike's tone in that interview, it's yeah, I'm really happy for Clint, but I ain't about to sacrifice my, you know, what we've built here and what we brought in the process I started last year, because you want to leave and jump ship and go to Vegas and be a head coach. Like, good luck to you. Wish you all the best. But John Benton ain't getting out of this as easy. You know, we're not going to let out and out as easy. And to be honest, like for me, I know, you know, like Brandon, I was very much on the Arthur Smith bandwagon for that opportunity to bring him in. I honestly think, based on how this is going, I think this is I don't even know if it's a 2-horse race. I really think it's Justin Outen's job almost to lose, because of the continuity you will have with Justin Outen and the run game, and that's something of an identity Mike wants. We saw Mike live in a pass-happy identity. He hated it with Ryan Grubb. It drove him absolutely nuts. And I'm not saying Jake Peets would be Ryan Grubb, but having if you're able to get Outen here, keep Benton here, and say Janocko leaves, okay, fine. I already have a solution for that, and that's T. Martin, who just got released from Baltimore, who has a history with McDonald, has a history with Outen, can come in and fill your quarterback role. Or you make Jake Peets passing game coordinator and quarterback coach, and that's how he stays in his role here in Seattle. John Benton comes in as your run game coordinator and O-line coach, which is a promotion, and Vegas already has an assistant head coach now in Mike McCoy. So it kind of, Seattle's set up in a way where they can change titles and keep everyone in house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's down to Outen and Janocko, and Outen does have play calling experience, however limited it may be. I said it earlier in the week. It is funny, kind of tying it back to the rush trade. The 2022 Broncos coaching staff with Nathaniel Hackett, Seahawks legend, just because he sucked so bad for Denver and gave us Devin Witherspoon. His offensive coordinator was Justin Outen. And when Hackett got fired, Clint Kubiak called the plays, and I think Kubiak was a quarterback's coach. And then when the interim coach, Kubiak called the plays, I think midseason, and Hackett ceded duties. But then after Hackett got fired, Justin Outen called plays the last 2 games of the season. And I really don't put much stock into like 2 games at the end of the year and how disastrous that offense was. But it didn't go too badly for Outen by any means. In fact, they ripped up the Chargers in the final game of the season. It was one of Russ's few good games in Denver. But as I said last week, and as Bryce actually astutely noted, it was curious that Outen was like one of the few coaches not made available to media that week for us to talk to. Like, they had Peets there, they had Janocko. Janocko was in hot demand as far as interviews, like a whole bunch of other Seahawks assistant coaches. Outen was not one of them. And I spoke with Greg Bell. We don't really know why that was the case, but I think it's logical for Outen to be the next offensive coordinator, if only because of the run game element to what Mike McDaniels wants.
Well, the interesting thing about those last 2 games that he called for the Broncos at the end of the year is those were their 2 highest scoring games. He averaged 27 points a game in those 2 games. That was the highest output that they had. Yeah, and I think you can't overlook what he did with the run game after he took over some more responsibilities of that. He was run game coordinator to begin with, and then taking that coaching aspect after Polamalu left. I mean, that means something, right?
At least to me, it does. It was a market difference after he left, and really, it's just the Colts game where the run game was not functioning, from start to finish. So it's going to be a big task for McDonald to keep finding the next guys by promoting internally, because I think what's going to eventually be Nick Sirianni's downfall in Philadelphia is he cannot seem to have a consistent hit rate with his coordinators, and maybe part of it is because people probably don't like working for Sirianni, but internal hires, as far as this coaching staff, I don't want it to be a case where they're just having to look for new offensive guys over and over again. At least this provides continuity with the staff that people are generally satisfied with. And to me, above all else, regardless of who the OC is, keeping Benton is a high priority. Like, of all the hires that Schneider nailed and McDonald, it's hiring John Benton.
Guys, in my ears, everything sounds fine. Sounds like you can hear me, but I've got some freezing on my screen. Does everything look okay from your end?
Close out your stop sharing.
Yeah, you're frozen. In fact, I believe you're doing it.
I can hear you. Right, we can hear you okay. It might be. It's probably that if you do the stop sharing, it should pop back up for you. Oh, no.
Did we lose Dan?
Lost Dan.
Oh, no. That's right. So remember when he switched that graphic up and there was a target on his head? It was the Seahawks Syndicate logo on it.
Oh, no.
Hey, at least it isn't my problem. I'm finally hardwired in, so it's not me anymore. Hooray for me.
Connection steady, dude. No blips, no chips.
I know, right? And I'm happy now. I'm like, whoo, I can run this and I don't have issues.
Yeah, I think the job is finished, everybody. I got to say, while we wait for Dan to come back, this first season of us together, the Syndicate, has been really awesome and amazing. And the fact that we're able to cover this team in person from all angles, the fact all four of us getting to go to training camp, Dan with credentials actually for several of those training camps, and then the four of us together for one practice in Renton, one practice at Lumen Field, and then throughout the season, none of us, I think, Bryce, you didn't go to any games this year, did you?
No, I didn't. I was going to go to the Vikings game, and then I just didn't end up going. I will be going to most likely Seahawks in Vegas next year.
Oh, okay.
Ooh,
Yeah.
There you go.
And Brandon, you're able to, did you go to any games this year or no?
I didn't, but we're going to do a roundtable event next year. So we did one in LA, San Francisco 49ers. We did a roundtable thing for that, for the NFC West roundtable. So we'll be doing one. I'm talking them into Seattle. I'm working their ear on it. And I've got them almost convinced with just winning the Super Bowl should pretty much lock it in at that point. So,
and then you just bring the Syndicate to your hangout, and you're just going to have the whole entirety force.
There you go, man.
You,
there we go. We got the Power Rangers coming together.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
At that point.
I mean, we covered them from training camp. I got to cover them during Super Bowl week for everything but the game itself. And you guys were also at the Senior Bowl and able to kind of scout future Seahawks. And then Brandon, to top it all off, you get to you get to at least attend the parade, and we get your perspective on it. So even without actually covering the games itself in person, I think we did a pretty thorough job as far as our perspective on this special Seahawks season. So 100% of the time when the Syndicate gets together, the Seahawks win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true.
Coincidence? I think not.
Right? No kidding.
I agree with you, Mookie. This has been a great thing to be able to do this with you guys, and expanding out is the way on this type of thing, especially with smart guys like yourself that are turning this over as in depth as you can, and just trying to cover this team as to the nth degree as we possibly can. And the Super Bowl season shows why we do that. You know, it sometimes seems hopeful, I think, from when we talk about this team and, okay, this is going this way and that going that way. But I think a lot of the satisfaction when the Super Bowl, I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this, has been that a lot of the outlooks and our takes towards the team have also had certain elements of being proven right. And that it does kind of confirm that when you try to look at this at an analysis level, really try to unpack it, you're not always going to be right. But that's what's the mode that's driving you. You can get to the heart of the matter on things. You can get really close to where the truth will end up lying. You can't predict it. There's always a bit of randomness with the NFL, right? But I think that also confirmed a lot of that with having us all be able to kind of turn over all these topics so many different directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I honestly, for me, I went through a bit of a change, right? I had to restart a channel from scratch, literally after training camp, and having you guys and the Syndicate and just being able to be a part of this, it made it so much easier for me to do that transition, right? I had built a show fell apart, and now to be able to be back and to do the Syndicate with you guys has been absolutely fantastic. And it's also to your point, Brandon, there about being able to bounce ideas off of and cover content, and something I may miss, you see or Mookie sees, and just to have that ongoing kind of conversation has been awesome. And it's something that I'm looking forward to going forward as it gets bigger and it, becomes a bigger thing that we do. And it's going to be fun to be at training camp this year for a week with you guys and to go through that process as well, and do another live show there. And hopefully this time we do the live show, we can pump it out enough that we get more people to come and join us live and have a cool kind of event there for that during preseason.
Oh, yeah. And especially we only got one preseason home game next year or this upcoming season. So that means that game is going to be kind of maybe the one that we look at covering to some degree. I don't know, watch party or something, but it's certainly going to be fun to watch this team through the lens of reigning Super Bowl champions and how they handle all of this success. And I was just speculating the other day who's going to be the opening night opponent. And
I think it'll be the Rams.
It's not going to be the Rams because the Rams and Niners are going to be playing in Australia week 1.
Oh, sorry. Then I think it'll be I got two in my opinion, two in my head that have come up. I think you could see a Super Bowl rematch. Mm-hmm. Being one. The other one I could see.
You think the Patriots are going back? Did you see the mic'd up on that, man?
No, Super Bowl rematch opening day is what I meant, Brandon.
Oh, okay.
God, no. No. I don't think they'll be back. I think they're going to win 6 games next year at max. Personally, that's my
Yeah. No, I was going to say.
No, I'm talking about like opening day for us because we have the Patriots as a home team coming in. I could see that. Personally, if I'm the NFL and I'm sitting and I'm looking at market revenue and I'm looking at like how do we get the most bang for our buck on it, I think it's going to be Dallas. They're still one of the most liked teams in the NFL. I could see it being Dallas on opening night versus Seattle, an NFC game. Put them in the big lights. You got Schottenheimer coming back to Seattle and everything else. I could see that being the thing. The DeMarcus Lawrence revenge game.
I think it's going to be the Bears because that was very, very close to being the NFC Championship game. And Ben Johnson versus Mike McDonald. That was a complete non-contest 2 years ago when McDonald was the Ravens DC and Ben Johnson was the Lions OC. 38-6, I think, was the final score, something like that. And it was one of the few times the Lions offense could do nothing all season because that was a fantastic offense that year. But you have Caleb Williams trying to solve this defense a second time after looking utterly befuddled. Hey, Dan's back.
Hey!
Never count me out.
I'm
like Sam Darnold after throwing 4 picks. I'm still going to come back and take it down the field.
We were worried about some sort of because when you were redoing the frames there, the Syndicate logo looked oddly enough like a bullseye right for your head. So we were kind of worried as to whether or not the job was finished. There was some sort of inside job going on actually, or if we've been infiltrated.
We're all good.
We were just talking about whether or not which team could Seattle host on opening night, and Bryce made the case for Dallas, and I made the case for the Bears because of
Bears. The Bears would be the most fun. That would be my preference. But I guess in third largest TV market, so that goes into it. But I could see it being I could see him doing the Cowboys too. I just think Bears make more sense. They're the it team. They're hot. They're kind of the up and comer. Yeah, I gave some thought to the Patriots, rematch, but I don't know that anyone wants to see that because it'll be boring. It'll be boring. Apparently,
I don't think that'll be boring for a Seahawks fan. I think that'll be a massacre.
If Mahomes didn't tear his ACL, if he had like a minor knee injury and his season got shut down because they knew they were out of it, they would not hesitate to book Kansas City, Seattle opening night. And frankly, I would love to see it. I'd love to see Mahomes against this defense. And like I said earlier, part of the disrespect or maybe the playing down of the Seahawks' success this year is because they didn't play the big giants for the AFC, Mahomes or Josh Allen. So that would be one of those examples. But yeah, you can't really go wrong with the available options. We know it will not be Arizona. We can safely rule out Arizona as the opening night opponent.
Here's my thing with that, and this is kind of where I'm pushing back a little bit on this narrative about quarterbacks. The best quarterback in the NFL this year, hands down, was Matthew Stafford. It wasn't Josh Allen. It wasn't Patrick Mahomes, even when healthy. It wasn't Lamar Jackson. And this whole thing about, if Josh Allen had made it through or Mahomes was healthy. We've seen in my opinion, you've seen it time in and time out. When a top offense that doesn't have a defense to go with it, regardless of how good the quarterback is, goes to a Super Bowl and plays a team that is the best defense in football, it never ends well. whether it was Peyton versus us, whether it was, you know, you look at Kerry Collins and the Giants team that went and played the Baltimore Ravens. It goes on and on. If you have an offense that's average or above average, in case of Seattle, you had a top 5 offense, but an offense that can run the ball and play to their defensive strengths, it always goes against a team that's got an elite offense, because once you start throwing off the rhythm of that elite offense and that elite quarterback, and they don't have a defense that can bail them out, they're up shit's creek. Sorry. It's just, it's that's where I push back on this narrative that to the people that are saying, oh, well, you didn't play. Who cares? Drake May was number 2 in the MVP voting, if you really want to get into it. Like, and again, I had to laugh today when I heard someone try and say that Drake May played a better game than Sam Darnold, statistically speaking. And I'm like, really? We're going to go and look at the box score when Drake May only threw for 60 yards in 3 quarters? Like, really? We want to go there with this and have this conversation? Like, come on. Don't go there. Don't do that to yourself as a Patriots fan.
Yeah, Tarico was saying right before the 4th sack of Drake May, we were witnessing one of the worst offensive performances in Super Bowl history. Wasn't saying that about the Seahawks, wasn't saying that about Sam Darnold, was saying that about the New England Patriots offense led by their MVP runner-up. So, yeah, it is one of those things where I agree with what you're saying, Bryce. It's 2 years in a row of that type of Super Bowl. Here's this big offense that cannot stop a 4-man rush. And that will befall even the absolute best established quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes. The Eagles didn't even blitz one time in that game. Seattle blitzed a bit in the first half and then stopped blitzing in the second half up until the Witherspoon forced fumble hit, whatever, pick 6. But if you can dominate with a 4-man rush, you're golden. And that should be everybody's goal. And there should be a greater emphasis now to be on interior pass rush. Interior pressure, I think, is the downfall of pretty much every quarterback just by default. It's harder to escape. And the Seahawks may not have that standout edge rusher, but they got a lot of good edge rushers, and they've got great interior defensive linemen, especially Byron Murphy. Could have easily been a Super Bowl MVP if Walker had a lesser day, for example.
All right, I want to get into this right here. Brandon, reason you joined us late tonight, you have an excused absence, by the way. You went up there, man. You went to the parade. What was that experience like?
We look up in the upper top corner of the right. No, I'm kidding. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal out there. 7:30, the 12s were out there and ready. I mean, think about it. These guys got to get out there to downtown Seattle. You got to get through rush hour traffic to get down there, but everybody was there really, really early. Everybody's prepping up down, for the bars that were open, down on in the bars, ready to go. They were in the spirit. The parade felt lively. The energy was right. It was positive. Of course, you can feel from the players how much they were enjoying it, but it was just good to see the Seattle be out there, and it's just good to be around it, to be just kind of immerse yourself into it. I'm away from the area, so I don't get to be around as many of the Seattle fans as often. And so just to have that opportunity to just kind of soak it in a little bit, be able to enjoy the Super Bowl parade, then go out there and go, drinking at some of the bars down there in Seattle and chop it up with a couple of Hawk fans and meet up with a couple of Nesters out there as well. It was a great experience. And for me, it was a must because I missed the last one. I couldn't miss this one. I had to check this one out, but it was just cool being amongst my people in the city, celebrating this trophy. And it was awesome. I can't say another word of it. It was an awesome experience.
And 2 Super Bowl wins for the Seahawks. Both times, parade day was brilliant and sunny. Right in the middle of the rainiest time of the year up there, although in 2013, it was cold as hell. It was it's 45 or 50 out there. You're probably in shirt sleeves, right? What was the single coolest thing you saw?
I think it's just as much as anything, it's just that everybody was just there in revelry of the team, and that people weren't out there with their own whatever, they're out there to try to just, hey, look, everybody just wanted to celebrate, and everybody had the phones up. The players were passing video in and out as they're going across the boats, and just, it was nothing but just appreciation for these guys and what they had done. It was like if that spirit was permeating through everything, I have to say it is. Maybe I'm getting a little woo-woo here, but it just felt like that. People were smiling and happy and good, but also you could just feel that, hey, you guys, we really appreciate this. It isn't we're just showing up and we're screaming at you, but man, we really are thankful that you guys got us this. You slayed off the old New England Patriot demon in the 1-yard play that's been played endlessly on a loop for 10 years. But beyond that, you got us a championship again. And I think that it was really cool to see that spirit from the 12s just universally. And I walked up and down. I was amongst the crowd in a couple different areas, and it was all over the place. Nobody being a-holes, nobody out of pocket, nobody acting weird, nobody trying to draw attention to themselves, just everybody in that right state of mind.
Not one arrest.
That stood out. Just that was not even close to it, right? Not even like, well, they were overlooking stuff. They were, and that just speaks to me not only of the nature of Seahawks fans.
There were a few,
and there was quite a little bit of smoke rolling. Brando was pretty contact high. They were about an hour into it and going, "Oh God!" Right in the crowd, huh, boys? Lighting them all up in the crowd, huh? Okay, this got better. So it was interesting in that point, but I think that you can't always get that at all Super Bowl parades. Like we had the Chiefs Super Bowl parade a year ago or something, or 2 years ago, and somebody got like shot so it was really cool to see everybody locked in.
Last year in Philadelphia, 50 arrests.
Philly. 50 arrests and not one. And it just, that's what I love about the Seahawks fan. I think we're kind of I'm not trying to say we're better than other fans, but I think that we lead with classiness, number one. But I also think that they were in the right spirit of what you want from your fans when that Super Bowl parade's going along, which is not about Luke and me. It's about, hey, guys, we appreciate you. Thank you for this. You guys are awesome for this. And it just speaks to the testament of how cool this fan base is.
Got a couple of super chats and donations to get to, and then we got to wrap this up. The Lord's disciple, on that note of the parade, $5 dono, thank you, was at the parade. It was so much fun. Got there early, had a spot right in front of JSN, got dapped up by Gray Zabel and Nwosu. Gray Zabel, by the way, with the best one-liner of this post-Super Bowl week, and that was on Sunday night, "It's a bad night to be a Busch Light." It was my favorite line I've ever
He brought a case in him supposedly too. He brought a case in the facility as he was coming in, I heard.
Nice. Well, there was a keg of Bud Light on the stage when they were giving their speeches at the beginning. And have you all seen the close up of John Schneider's face where he gets caught and you can read his lips and he goes, "I'm fucking hammered already." Just ran me with the $4.99. Sorry, Bryce. Shout out to Steven. Hope you beat that condition. We're praying for you. Yeah, Bryce.
I was going to say that there is another John Schneider shirtless photo with a WWE belt on.
Yeah. Had to recreate.
Him and Leonard Williams. It was better when John was with DBs and he was in his right kind of height and frame. Leonard Williams flexing beside you, John. That I give you props for doing that, my friend. That was fantastic. But
hell yeah,
it was, that whole team was hammered. Like on the stage, they were hammered. Like even like Sam, you could tell Sam was really thinking about his words when he was saying his whole, his whole part. But like
Barner.
The fact, Barner was just gooned. It was awesome. But then to give Ernest the mic, and he goes, and NFL Network's got it, and the shirt, which, by the way, I've got to find one of those because I want that shirt
I do
so
too.
badly.
They've been posted. Yeah, they're out there.
And to have him go through that list, if you've got anything to say about my quarterback, my O-line, my defense, the city of Seattle, we got 2 words for you. And then to drop that like he did, I was like, this is to me a little bit about what's different about this team. Not to say like our prior team wasn't outspoken, but this team, when they speak, it has almost a little bit more of a punch to it than the other team. Not saying that Sherman them didn't, but it's just a little bit different the way these guys go about it. Like you got Spoon behind him flipping the bird at the same time he's saying it. Like no matter how you want to cut that on national TV and try and censor it, you ain't censoring that clip.
It's a brotherhood, man. That's the thing that's the difference is that, look, there were sections of brotherhood in the Legion of Boom. There were cliques of brotherhoods in the Legion of Boom, but the team wasn't from 1 through what they like to call even 70, going past the 53, connected and playing for each other, loving one another, understanding that this is like what it takes for us to get here, but wanting to do it as well. Not that it's forced or ham-fisted, but it's naturally something that they just do, and having each other's back to the nth degree. And it's part of what will sustain them. It's part of what will not only get them to this championship right now, but will help on into the future, as this is now, the baseline that you've kind of set.
Yep. It goes a long way, and it's just fun to watch. It's an easy team to root for, even I would think from the outside looking in, as long as you're not blinded by some sort of, bias. And look, we talked about how well behaved everybody was, but yeah, there was some drinking, and there were some people online yesterday, like content creators, reporters from other cities that have a rooting interest against the Seahawks that were trying to say they weren't very classy or whatever. Remember Jason Kelsey? Remember Travis Kelsey? Remember, like, every year this happens. It's not unique to Seattle.
Let them enjoy it. Like, who cares? Whatever that. Like, just let them enjoy it. It's so hard to do that. It's the hardest thing to do in sports, and like, you've literally laid your body on the line. Like, if I can't think of a person that's earned the right to have a day of drinking at that point, you know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yep. A couple of other things to get to. Here's one from Black Thought Brown Dreams, $1.99. Thank you for that. I see Arizona's interviewing our DB coach as D coordinator. Talked about a lot of coaching situations. Carl Scott being interviewed by Mike LaFleur and company down in Arizona to coordinate their defense potentially. Are we concerned about this?
I thought Carl Scott was going to get a job in this cycle. Like, I would not be shocked. He is. And I figured if Durde left and went to Vegas, like everyone was reporting could happen, I was like, Carl Scott will be the next successor in that line.
Do we get a compensatory pick if he goes?
For
He's been with us for 2 years. So yes,
Carl Scott.
I thought that was like you have to be like elevated to a head coach or something. I don't think it's necessarily.
I think it's coordinators, and
head coach and GM.
Head coaches if they leave. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think there'd be a
not.
comp pick situation there. But I tell you what, I think Carl Scott is going to be a DC sooner rather than later, and he's been instrumental. He was one of the few Pete holdovers, and for good reason.
Wouldn't mind an extra third-round pick. I just at
you
this
get point, you get two, buddy. You get
even,
two if it's
even if we were to have gotten rated, which it doesn't sound like we're going to now. We're going to lose a couple of guys. I have such a high amount of trust for Mike McDaniels and his vision and what he's looking for and his ability to select the right guys. I'm not worried about it. Got a couple others to get to. Joanna Taylor with the $4.99 checking in. Appreciate that. Is Sam elite? We do not care to win Twitter QB rankings. It's a team. He fits. I love Sam. He's a game commander. Won the Super Bowl. QB ranking is moot. I love everything that Joanna just said there.
John.
Yeah.
Jonna.
Naylor.
Just John Naylor.
John Naylor. Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know. John Naylor. Hey, good to see you. My bad. It's, mistakes. I love
Super Bowl Afterglow.
So much of what's in there. First of all, the game commander. I think that was Greg. He took that from somebody this week that I heard said, I don't like the game manager title. Let's call them game commanders. Yeah. Everybody wants to talk about like, oh, he's not elite. Okay. He was good enough to win a Super Bowl. You know why the word elite exists? Because there aren't very many of them, but you can still win a championship without an elite quarterback. And I've maintained since about mid-season that he's clearly, in my mind, a top 10 quarterback by just about
This is what bothered me about Bryce. Had a guy on his channel a couple months ago who tried to relate Sam Darnold to Jimmy Garoppolo. And this is why I hated that crap so much. What he's done, this is why I hate it. And he's not the only one for this take. There's a lot of people with that lame ass take. It's the most, and I'm sorry, it's really bad. It's really bad. It's the most generalized, trying to apple for apple. And there's so much Sam does that goes beyond what a guy like a Jimmy Garoppolo does. And you can't just stat track everything that a quarterback does across the board. And a lot of the stuff that Sam does is a little bit more nuanced and a little bit extra detail driven in what he's doing that doesn't get appreciated, especially when you hear takes like that, or people still trying to relate it back to Brad Johnson or back over to Trent Dilfer. I don't think it has any place or any standing whatsoever. He's far beyond that as a quarterback. He is a top 10 quarterback in this sport. And it really is, it is an insult when you throw that to him in that way, in my opinion. Game managers don't win 14 wins back-to-back at two different teams in the way they have, especially when both of those two teams didn't do as well when he left and hadn't done as good when he arrived. And so I just don't buy into any of it whatsoever. And I think that the Super Bowl and his performance through this playoffs absolutely showed you that he is beyond that.
Yeah. You have to work pretty hard and do some pretty heavy lifting and some mental gymnastics to prove that he's outside the top 10. And usually when people try to claim he's outside the top 10, they'll just name 10 quarterbacks off the top of their head that they think are top 10, but they can't back them up with numbers.
No, they can't. They just kind of like him. They'll go like, well, I like Justin Herbert's definitely above him. Well, well, why? He's got the big arm, and it's just, what has he done? Yeah. What has he done? Tell me, please. Didn't he have more turnovers in one game in this playoffs than Sam had throughout all of those games in the playoffs this year? And it's not all his fault, but he hasn't earned the right to be above Sam then at that point, just because he's got great talent. It's just kind of, you like him. You sort of like I just kind of like he's big and, just like him.
Hey guys, I unfortunately have to hop off the show. I've got to go run a coaches meeting for my team that I'm head coaching this summer. So I've got to hop off. So again, to everybody, I appreciate everyone. Guys, I appreciate you with the syndicate so much and the brotherhood that we've developed here, which is fantastic. But unfortunately, I've got to hop off. So as always, go Hawks, and I'll see you guys later on.
Yeah. Subscribe to Bryce's channel. Go to the Hawks Eye. He's almost at 2,000 subscribers.
No, actually, breaking news. I broke it. I'm at 2,000. I'm over 2,000. I broke it before at the end of the season.
There
we go.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Have a good rest of your night. And to all my listeners, see you guys later.
All right.
Sounds good, brother.
Good to have Bryce. Let's get to the rest of these donations, and then we'll all call it a night. I like this. This is a great follow-up from John Naylor. A lot of elite quarterbacks at home watching the Super Bowl. Go Sam. And this is another one.
It's a lot, and their management of the game is a big part of it. You can have hyper talented guys, but they can't manage a game. And I don't mean game manager. I mean managing the game itself. They're just making those throws. Like Caleb Williams isn't managing the game. He's just looking for that opportunity to, make a big play, make a great play, work off script a little bit. That's where it's intently there. And there's a skill and a value to controlling yourself, but still being effective. Because a lot of quarterbacks, the second that they have to kind of ratchet themselves down and try to control themselves, it's just they can't produce it all. They need to be able to have kind of the mistakes with the good to be able to get the production they've got.
Haven't we done that before with Russ? I mean, second year Russ was a lot different as a passer than 2018, 2019 Russ. It's just that those defenses were worse. The 2013 Russ was very much in the quote game manager mode. We got to stop treating that as a pejorative for players and like a derogatory term. A quarterback is supposed to be a game manager, and Russ more often than not was just playing point guard, making the right plays when he had to, made some clutch game-winning drives, all that. Sam did that, to a different degree. It's a better passing season, but we shouldn't be having the same discussion twice over as far as quarterbacks and not having to be the star. I don't want my quarterback to have to carry the load so much, which is exactly kind of the downfall of previous Seahawks teams.
Yeah, I like this from the Lord's Disciple 777. That's the most I've ever seen Sam Darnold smile. You absolutely feel in his post-game interview and the stuff he's done since and at the parade yesterday, like he tried to keep it close to the vest. He tried to say it didn't bother me. I wasn't there. You could see the release from him.
Oh, yeah. And then, and you might don't be surprised if you get a confident Sam coming in next year that even elevates his game further now without that monkey on his back.
He basically had a better Geno story. Geno was a good story because he went from bust to, hey, he got to the playoffs to now, and he's a starting quarterback. Now that's tailed off to an upgrade from Geno. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Feed me more Seahawks with a $2 donation says, glad Cooper Kupp gave the finger to the Rams coaches with a ring. That was nice to see. Yeah.
Seems like that story was true about the Rams coaches too. Can you believe how out of pocket that is? That story now in retrospect being confirmed is that you aren't like sabotage his free agency, right? Which for what reason? Like, why would you have wanted to do it? Other than I can only think that they were scared he was going to go to Seattle. It's the only reason I can think of them to do that. And then you have the midseason game where he fumbles at the end of halftime, and then you're talking trash to the Seahawks coaches. They're going to the elevator at the same time. Just kind of shows you a little bit of the level of arrogance that was probably existing in that organization here in the last year.
Absolutely.
Well, look who ended up being the first receiver in Super Bowl history to be the leading receiver in yards for two separate Super Bowl champions. That's Cooper Kupp. That's what Cooper Kupp did. You shut JSN down, and Cooper Kupp steps up one last time. He had a hell of a playoff run.
Yeah,
can we also all agree he's got to, I don't care about what the cap he costs next year. His value goes beyond just productivity on the field, and he provides productivity on the field. He's got to remain here. This can't be one of those situations you're looking at and trying to get cute with the numbers on this. And, well, to get Shaheed, we have to let go of, I don't know that I'm at that point where I would make that decision.
Keeping Kupp on his current deal isn't going to cost you a player next year. It's not going to force you to have to part ways with someone you don't want to part ways with. They can bring back everybody they want to bring back.
Yep.
Yeah. Got a couple donations from my side that I can't show on the screen, but we'll do this. Got a little workaround here from Taker 610, $5 dono. This is an interesting alternate reality question. If we had taken Creed Humphrey, would our upward trajectory have been significantly different? Could Creed have taken us higher? He was taken in 2020, shortly after we took Dwayne Eskridge. I know we all spent a lot of time losing sleep and stressing over that. But I think now when you look back at how the rest of this team was built, I don't think it impacted where we are today at all.
No, I think that person just wanted to make a take me higher Creed joke, because that's exactly where my mind went.
I appreciate that. And then he's got another one. He says, try not to throw up, but before the 2023 draft, I was thinking we'd take Anthony Richardson at 5 and let him sit behind Geno for a year or two. You know who else was considering taking Anthony Richardson at 5? The Seahawks. And if Devin Witherspoon had been taken before 5, there's a lot of reporting and indications that might have been the pick. And imagine where we might be now if that had gone that way. Sometimes you have to be a little lucky in addition to being good.
Anthony Richardson behind last year's offensive line would have had 11 different injuries.
We would have had two Anthonys that fans would have wanted.
Yes.
And you never know with Creed Humphrey, by the way. That the thing with the Creed Humphrey thing is he make you just a little bit better in one of those years. I mean, that first year, for instance, that Geno took over, if there's a Creed Humphrey at center, you get in the playoffs, you had the lead at halftime against the Niners in playoffs. Does he get just one more playoff win? Does it just get you a little bit better to keep jobs, keep quarterback, keep head coach job?
Does Pete not get fired 2 years ago?
Exactly. Just doing just enough to kind of push it past the line for Pete to keep it there at that point. I mean, it's a possibility. I'm not saying it would, but it might have. Adding the best center in football is going to help.
The butterfly effect is a real deal. Let's end on this. I thought this was one of the coolest things that I saw this week, even though Sports Illustrated isn't really Sports Illustrated anymore. Seeing the picture of the cover that they do every year is still pretty badass. I know you guys have seen this. But it's really, really pretty smart. Whoops, get it back up there again. Pretty smart how they made it look so similar to 2013, right? You got the boom, and then you got the dark side. Both pictures are showing the opposing quarterback getting just pounded. That's fantastic. That warms the cockles.
Did you see,
heart, as they say?
Did you see the Twitter guy online too that put the two plays interconnected between them and how similar look? Even the pointing up of Malcolm Smith is pointing up, and then Uchenna points up too as he's running it into the end zone.
No, didn't see that.
It was cool. Very cool. If you get a chance online, it's on there somewhere.
Seems like a good note to end on, you guys. Glad you could get back in time to join us, Brandon. And just to let you guys all know, we'll end on this note. First of all, if you haven't, get over to Brandon's page, the Hawks Nest. Fantastic show over there. He does a lot of live streaming. Subscribe to the channel if you don't already. And if you're not reading Field Gulls, you're doing it wrong, and you're just hurting yourself as a fan, because it's the best collection of information on a daily basis about the Seahawks, and some great analysis and commentary over there as well. The Seahawks Syndicate is not going away just because the season is over. Probably we're going to have some discussions this next week about, may dial it back, may not be every single week, but we're going to be here all the way through. We're going to take you through the off season and the lifting that happens there, and what happens behind the curtain and under the hood to try to put the next iteration of this team together to try to get back and win another Super Bowl. So any final thoughts, you guys?
Yeah. Dan, because you probably didn't hear because you're offline briefly, it has been a pleasure and an honor to work with you, Brandon, and Bryce this entire season. We got together, we sensed something special. If for anybody, go back to at least, I think, Brandon's channel, watch some of our clips from training camp and our thoughts at the time on DeMarcus Lawrence or Torrey Horton or Nicky Manwari. We saw the vision.
How good Sam was in practice every day.
Yes, and it lived up to expectations and then some. So I'm looking forward to what we can do throughout the offseason. And just as a little teaser, at the very least, I will be on the Daniel Jeremiah media conference call ahead of the NFL Combine. Hopefully, my fellow syndicate members can join as well. So I was the only Seahawks media member last year, somehow, some way on that call, hoping that we can get more Seahawks representation next week, because we still got a lot to work on as far as figuring out who will be the next gen of Seahawks players to be on future contenders.
I got to get on that call, man. I was able to talk to Daniel in the airport out of Mobile. So we're boys now, basically.
Nice. Yeah. The only thing harder than winning a Super Bowl is winning another one. And that's the challenge that faces us. And I think that's what's going to kind of shape our view of this thing as we move forward. All right, you guys, thanks. Thank you all for being here. Just keep an eye on all of our social feeds for news on when and how often we'll continue to do this through the offseason, but we look forward to it. And let's just enjoy this thing. All right, your Seahawks are Super Bowl champions yet again. For Mookie and Bryce and Brandon, I'm Dan. We'll see you next week.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Hey, we did it, Mookie. We did it, man.